All right, welcome to ACIM Talks with Reverend Jim. It is Monday, November 6th, around 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm glad you guys could be here with me tonight. I think we have another valuable time together again tonight. And I hope you get something out of it, okay? We were just talking about before we started the recording that I have done some pretty heavyweight video recordings over the last couple of weeks. So I was a little hesitant about doing yet another. And yet I said, this group is so deep, they can take it. So I said, go ahead, Jim. They can fathom this whole thing and take it all in stride. But I do promise to do something a little more relaxing next time. I have a video tonight, and it's called Proof That Reality is an Illusion, the Mystery Beyond Time-Space. And it's a guy named Donald Hoffman. Has anyone heard of him?
No.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised, but boy, he's like this top physicist and complete kind of science person. And yet I think you'll see again the spirituality that has evolved out of his theories and research and things like that. He unabashedly says, like a few others we've heard, that the world is an illusion. And I keep kind of pounding this in a little bit again because it gives me great confidence when I see ideas confirmed by a wide swath of people from a lot of different backgrounds. And going back to fundamentals, Dee, we're still on the subject of this is but one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others. How many have we covered so far, would you say? How many versions so far?
Not counting, but quite a number.
And do you get the feeling there are many others, as the course says?
Yeah.
So this is definitely coming from more of a pure science, traditional science perspective.
What do you need?
Sherilyn, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Looks like you got people calling you there.
I'm calling Ken. Just a minute.
Okay. So Sherilyn's here. I've got her on the list. But right now, why don't we just go into this video, proof that the world is an illusion. And I didn't start at the beginning. The thing runs, an hour and a half or whatever. Yeah. But I tried to start at a spot where I think you'll get something out of it if I show about 10 minutes of it. So without further ado, why don't I put the video on? Let me get queued up here properly. And I'll go like that. And there he is.
So we've mistaken a limit of our headset for an insight into the nature of reality. I see a rock and it looks pretty dumb to me. Well, it's not because I'm interacting with a dumb reality. It's because my headset has to give up. It's simplifying things. It's dumbing things down. So when I'm interacting, so I'll be very, very clear. When I pick up a rock, I am interacting with consciousness. And I'm not saying the rock is conscious, right? I'm not saying the rock is conscious. The rock is just my experience. So for example, let's do the VR metaphor again with Grand Theft Auto. When I grab the steering wheel of my car, right, I'm doing something inside the computer, but there's no steering wheel inside the computer.
Right.
So that's the key thing to keep. I'm always, in that metaphor, I'm always interacting with diodes and resistors and voltages. That's what I'm always doing. Sometimes I see those diodes and resistors as a steering wheel. Sometimes I see them as a Ferrari. Sometimes I see them as my arm, my avatar arm. But I'm always interacting with the diodes and resistors in that metaphor. So now backing it into, I'm saying consciousness is the fundamental engine. It's the supercomputer behind everything. And everything that I see is my interaction with that engine, with consciousness. But my headset dumbs things down. So with you, I'm getting insight into the consciousness that I'm interacting with my cat, but with a rock not. But it's just wrong to say the rock is unconscious and your body is conscious. Those are just, put it this way, the body that I'm perceiving is not you. It's just the body that I'm perceiving.
Yeah.
And for all I know, if you actually knew what I was perceiving of you, you would say, no, that's not what I think I look like at all.
Right.
So...
Yep. I mean, so much of the world, and I'm excited to dive into this a little bit later, so much division and separation comes from the tightly held beliefs of our perceptions being the absolute truth, right? And so
That's right.
this view of consciousness being fundamental is a completely 180 shift from how most people even approach the hard problem, right? And
Absolutely.
we think that at some stage of neuronal development, we turn that dial enough and then we get conscious experience by virtue of unconscious complexity just kind of developing. But if consciousness is fundamental, then you're coming at the problem, if you want to call it that, from the completely opposite angle.
That's exactly right. So most of my colleagues who are studying consciousness, good friends and colleagues, and they're brilliant, but most of them are physicalists. They assume that space-time is fundamental, which is false. They assume that reductionism is true, which is false. They assume that brain activity, or, for example, complicated enough artificial intelligence systems, the right activity in computers, somehow gives rise to conscious experiences. So that's the standard view. And again, these are my friends and colleagues. They're brilliant. But they've failed so far to explain any specific conscious experience. There's no scientific theory today, none, that can explain a specific conscious experience and how it arises from the brain activity or orchestrated collapse of neuronal microtubule quantum states or integrated information or some global workspace architecture. If you ask them, and I've done this. I mean, these are my friends. So I'll ask them informally. I'll ask them at conferences when I want to put them on the spot. I'll just say, so great, you have a theory of consciousness. So what specific conscious experience can you explain? What is the integrated information theory pattern, what they call the Q shape, that must be the taste of chocolate and couldn't be the smell of garlic? What is it? Or whatever one you want. Can you give me one? No. And I've done this with Stuart Hameroff and with this Hameroff and Penrose model. So, Stuart, can you give me a specific conscious experience that you can explain? And I had to push 2 or 3 minutes. He hemmed and hawed, and I finally, Stuart, can you give me one? Finally, I had to say, no, you can't. And it's not because they're dumb; they're brilliant. But you can't boot up consciousness from space-time objects. It's just not possible. And so spiritual traditions have been saying this for thousands of years, right? They've been saying that consciousness is fundamental and space and time is, they haven't used the term headset, but it's maybe an illusion or something, and Plato has the allegory of the cave. Okay. And so the spiritual traditions have in some sense been there for quite a while, but they haven't had the tools of mathematics. They've had only imprecise language to work. And they also haven't had the tools of experimental psychology, for example, or experimental science more generally. So so we're coming to a nice convergence for humanity. The spiritual traditions have been saying this for thousands of years, but haven't had the tools to make it rigorous. And they've suffered for that, because when you only have words, the words, they'll say the words are just pointers. The Tao, the Ching starts off, the very first sentence is, the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. Once you understand that, then it's fine. Then you can read the rest of the book and realize, don't take this stuff literally. Just take it as pointers to the truth inside you, the consciousness inside you. And any good spiritual tradition will make that distinction clear up front. But the followers have famously and terribly misunderstood that, and we end up with religious wars and persecutions and killings and so forth. And so a lot of that comes because we've had imprecise language, and it's easy to become dogmatic and to not understand the limits. So what we have coming with science now is the scientists are now saying, okay, we need to look outside of space-time. And the spiritual traditions are saying, well, great, we've been here for quite a while.
Right.
Come join us. But now the scientists have these incredible tools. They thought that they were studying reality. They've been studying their headset. We've been studying the space-time headset since Galileo. But we got good enough that we actually discovered that it's just a headset, right? It's actually the tools of science that have forced us to recognize that space-time is just a headset.
Which is an incredible achievement.
It's unbelievable. And that's what is so beautiful about the science, is that the theories are mathematically precise, so that they tell you two things. They tell you the scope, the power of your theory with mathematical precision. But even more importantly, they tell you the limits. This is how far your theory goes, and then it stops. And that's the point of mathematical theory, is they tell you the scope and the limits of the foundational concepts of your theories. And so going forward now, I think that science will get a really mathematically precise theory of consciousness. I'm working with my team. We can talk about the one I'm working on if you want. But I should make a point here that many philosophers have argued against what I'm saying. They'll say, look, and this has been published in scientific philosophy journals, for example. And so a number of philosophers have said, Hoffman is saying that he's using evolutionary game theory, the mathematics, to show that organisms and resources, objects in space and time, are not fundamental. They're an illusion, that we don't see reality as it is. Well, now Darwin, in his theory, was proposing real physical objects competing for real physical resources in space and time. So the philosophers will say, well, now look, now either the mathematics of evolutionary
All over the earth, God is raising up a new breed of wealth builders who will use their money to shape the course of world history without building a golden calf. You see, true prosperity is not about toys and trinkets. It's about
game theory faithfully represents Darwin's theory, or it doesn't. Now, if it doesn't, you couldn't possibly use it to show that space and time and physical objects aren't fundamental. And if it does faithfully represent Darwin's theory, then it wouldn't contradict Darwin's theory. And Darwin's theory assumes space and time and physical objects. So either way, you're in a bad situation, what they will call an unenviable dialectical position. You know, the philosopher like to use that language. So an undesirable dialectical position that you put yourself in. Either way, you can't possibly. So they're saying basically you couldn't use evolutionary game theory in principle to show that space and time and physical objects aren't fundamental. And what they're missing is this. The mathematics, as it's used in science, is built on the assumptions of the theory. And it shows you the scope of those assumptions, but also the limits. And there will be limits. No, there is no theory of everything. In principle, there is no scientific theory of everything, because you always have to have assumptions. And so you have a theory of everything except for your assumptions, but the assumptions are the miracles of your theory. Now, so what happens then is, just to make a real clear example of this, because this really seems to have grasped the imagination of a lot of philosophers and people who are philosophically minded. They think I'm in a logically bad situation. I've shot myself in the foot logically. Einstein and his theory of space-time. He had the intuitions about space and time and gravity warping space and time. He wrote them down in mathematics, right? So, for example, he had, like 1907, he had the idea that if he was in an elevator and it was falling, he was in an elevator and standing on a scale, and he weighs, I don't know, 150 pounds, and then you cut the cord of the elevator and it goes in free fall. All of a sudden, Einstein realized I'd weigh nothing. And that was his big insight. That was the big insight that led to his theory of gravity. It took him several years until like 1915 to actually turn it into mathematics. Well, so now that we have Einstein's intuition and his own mathematics to make it formal, and also his mathematics for quantum theory, and we put them together, we find out that space-time ceases to have any operational meaning at what's called the Planck scale, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, 10 to the minus 43 seconds. So there we see that Einstein himself, with his own mathematics that were formalizing his own intuitions, comes up with mathematics that tells him the limits of his intuition. The limits are 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, 10 to the minus 43 seconds. Space-time no longer makes sense.
So did you understand any of that? Is that a yes or a no?
Well, was he saying that consciousness is fundamental and everything arises from consciousness?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And historically, the scientists were saying that space-time is fundamental and that consciousness would arrive from something in that. But what's that got to do with A Course in Miracles at all? Let's just start there for our discussion.
In the Course, everything is consciousness.
Yeah. Consciousness is fundamental. And there was, I started this about 35 minutes in, and you remember him talking about headsets?
Mhm.
And it's all of this, they use Darwin's theories of evolution, but the problem they run into is when you try and put this into mathematics, which is the most precise language we have. Do you remember him saying the thing about having to put things into mathematics is that they'll show you that it does work, but it also shows you where it fails. So using mathematics based on Darwin theories of evolution, when they start putting that into mathematics, yeah, it worked for a while, but at a certain level, it fails. And therefore can't be completely true because the math won't work.
Mhm.
Mysterious, isn't it? And flies in face of everything traditionally that folks are taught. But do you remember him saying that spirituality has been saying this for thousands of years?
Yes.
Right.
The problem was that we're just now getting the mathematics to back it up. because we're starting to put something new into mathematics, which is not something where space-time is fundamental, but let's just put it in and see if it holds up, and it does not. So once again, good old Course in Miracles. Thank you, God, for giving us the truth, at least as a better starting point. Consciousness is fundamental. And did you hear him say there is no theory of everything? No? Well, Einstein went so far, but then about 50 years ago, with the rise of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, it's like Einstein stuff applied to macro things, to big things like from bugs to buildings to planets to suns to stars. You could use Einstein stuff, but quantum physics applies to the incredibly small. And so for years, you know, we were trying to find the smallest unit of matter from which all matter evolves, right? But the better the instrumentation became, we could see smaller and smaller things through electron microscopes and things like that. So we used to say, oh, okay, we've got it. We've got molecules. And then, oh my God, there are these things called atoms. And if you look at the structure of the atom with the electrons and that, but right in the center, there's that nucleus, we think that that is the smallest particle from which everything else evolves. And then time went on and we found, oh my God, wait, there's smaller particles inside the nucleus. And that's how we got into subatomic particles like quarks and other particles that when we had the equipment, we could see that even the nucleus of the atom wasn't the smallest thing. And finally, quantum physics came out and said, matter does not come from matter. Matter comes from something else, from ideas, energies, thoughts. You remember that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? That was groundbreaking to me in terms of mainstreaming or publicizing some of these ideas. And then that Einstein insight about being in an elevator and you weigh 150 pounds and the elevator's up, and then all of a sudden you let it fall and your weight mathematically goes to zero. So where is the substance of space-time? Where is the real substance of form?
Consciousness.
That's what I'm getting out of it too. So we've heard it from I don't know, Wayne Dyer and all kind of folks up to very highly educated, sophisticated scientists. And they're saying that consciousness is fundamental and that everything stems from there. So I'm going to stop beating this horse but
Gonna lay down?
Yeah, I wanted.
I hope you found it of
Second.
interest and of some value what
Yeah.
we're talking about tonight. Any
Thank you.
comments about it?
This is the,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I can talk to you later.
Well, I can read this.
Okay. All right. Hey, Ron, I haven't heard from you on this. What are your thoughts?
It's kind of over my head, to be honest with you, so I'm just listening.
Okay. I see you smiling though, because you're a Course in Miracles person. And I'm just, you see that we're not the only ones, right? As a matter of fact, there's zillions of us going back through time, but now we have the mathematics, something that maybe people will accept more easily than just words, to show that that the world is coming from a more fundamental base called consciousness. So, all right, well, I will stop there. Was there anything else? All right. Do you like when I bring videos like this, or?
I like some better than others.
You know, which ones you like better?
I like the one last week. This guy talked too fast for me. I had a hard time following him.
Okay.
And, the guy that was interviewing him, he spoke slower, and you know, I got everything he said. So,
You're talking about the video tonight?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The one last week was really good.
Okay. Well, hey, 1 out of 2 ain't bad, so I'll keep trying it. All right, my friends, without further ado, are we ready to get back to Mr. Anderson, ACIM, and the 12-step program? I'll share screen and make it a little easier for us to see each other. You know, I had that we were on page 18, paragraph 3. Let me go to that and see if that makes sense to you. I'll make it a bit bigger. And let's see how that works out. Oh no. So you see that 17 and now 18. Somehow I thought, does that sound right to you? The third paragraph on page 18? Here, let me read this one. Now, if you decide that what you want, I'm sorry. Now, if you decide that you want what we have and are willing to go to some lengths to get it, oh, it doesn't say some lengths. No, it doesn't say compromise. We talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay. We said it says are willing to go to any lengths. So I'm assuming we finished that paragraph and can pick up with 3, but do you want to try that and see if it feels okay to just pick up and go forward?
Sure.
Yes.
All right.
I have no idea where we left off, to be honest. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I think I was the one that read that paragraph.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember asking about the sea and nobody had any idea why it was there.
Yeah, like it was an artifact or something, article. So D is reader 1, then Joan is 2, Ron is 3, Sherilyn 4, and I'll be number 5 if we get that far. Okay. All right. So, Miss Newman, it ended up all of your human memories verify your addiction to self-possessive termination. Wow. Woo. Okay, go ahead, Dee. Sorry.
And at some of these steps, you're going to balk. Why? You still think you can find an easier and softer way to the solution. It's a lot easier for me not to have to listen to you, Jesus of Nazareth. It's a lot easier for me not to have to listen to the inevitability of my surrender in order to have the experience. I would rather assert a compromise to your direction, that thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, so I can continue to direct my own program. Any good, and I'm using the term recovered, alcoholic knows perfectly well that the more he directs his associations, the more resentment he will retain in the necessity for the expression of himself. That's a fact. Let go and let God. Get out of the driver's seat. Go the extra mile. But for the grace of God. What's ever happened to all these expressions? They're too spiritual. They are ultimately nothing but a confession of God need.
Whoa. Comments? Yeah, I'd fight Jesus himself over this, right?
Well, yeah, it certainly rings a bell that I resist not following my own ways. Takes a long time to took me a long time, and I'm still working on it, to want to follow God's directives and not my own, not be the one in charge.
Yeah. And the idea of separate heavens is incredibly attractive. And it's such a titillating idea that we, I guess, as a species, fueled it with our very nature. It's like the power of God in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But because of free will, the power isn't restricted just because you use it to make idols and to make separate heavens. Do you think God, being omniscient, figured that might happen? Hello?
I know I have no idea.
Yeah, sometimes like on Facebook, I get these Course in Miracles, like the Foundation for Inner Peace has a Facebook page.
Uh-huh.
And I'll hear more than once, I've heard people say, where if we are really perfect and there's nothing for us to learn, why would we come here? Would there be no necessity to come here if we were already perfect? Have you ever heard anybody, well, what's this all about then? I mean, why is it just to circle back to where we never left? It seems, I mean, what purpose could it serve? I ask you what purpose? Well, if we were already awake,
Mm-hmm.
why the need for any of this? I could see why people would ask. Yes.
We didn't stay awake.
Why not?
You've fallen asleep here and we're in a dream
Why?
because we wanted to separate from God.
Do you think God knew we want to separate?
Sure, God knows everything.
I don't think I don't think so. I think God's a principle. I don't think it's that kind of a knowing.
Well, distinguish what kind of knowing.
I don't know. It
that
doesn't
is
feel,
not.
it just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't feel, I don't know. God, to me, God is a principle and a law. And
So
and
why
and
did-
and that doesn't deviate from its own truth ever, never.
So why this whole experience it seems we're all going through?
Because it only seems like we are. It's not real.
I understand, but why would we even go into unreality at all?
I think because a lot of people don't know that. They don't realize what, the way it is.
And we
They don't
do
see
have
it the
free
way
will.
you do.
Ah, yeah,
So we
thank
could,
you, Sherilyn. And Dee, I heard some words, free will.
I'm
What?
sorry, Sherilyn, I thought you were finished.
No, I'm finished, sir.
So you said because we have free will, Dee?
We could dream up whatever we could imagine. We could,
Yeah,
in
and we do.
consciousness, dream. Yeah, and we do dream up whatever our
So
heart desires.
do you think Source would know that we might dream up whatever we desire?
I would think so.
I don't think so either.
No,
I think it's a principle and it's a law, and 2 + 2 = 4. It has no awareness of 2 + 2 = 5 or anything but 4.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
well, God knows that, but too many of us don't realize it.
I think we live in a world of distractions and we are
Yes.
distracted on a regular basis every day. We're distracted from the truth
Yes.
and we tend to go along with those distractions.
So let's rewind way back though, Ron, and talk about the tiny mad idea. Do you think, forgive me, I'll just say God knew we might have a tiny mad idea? Understanding
so.
the nature
I
of
think
free will,
so.
Joni?
Yeah, I think God. Wait a minute, I'm trying to think of something you said once that
Yes.
something about God being very aware of this tiny mad idea we might have. That maybe even, did he plant the idea?
Well, yeah, I've postulated that and made an analogy to the prodigal son
Mm-hmm.
who went and asked his father, "Father, give me my inheritance. I think my happiness lies in a faraway land." And my reading of that, what hit me years ago, the first time I read it, was his father didn't even try and stop him.
Right.
Did you notice that when you read the parable of the prodigal son?
Love doesn't force.
Yeah. And when the prodigal came back home, he thought his father was going to be mad at him, but his father actually rejoiced. as though there was some benefit to what happened. The kid thought it was terrible how he went and lost everything, but he was surprised that his father was overjoyed to see him again. And it mattered not that he had lost anything, right?
Right.
So why was his father so willing to overlook the particulars of that story? You lost all your inheritance, you stupid boy. How come he didn't say that?
Because the guilt was in the son's mind. It was only in his own consciousness.
So then let me take it one step further. If source, God, whatever you want to call it, is omnipotent and omniscient, let alone omnipresent, how could the kids have had a tiny mad idea without it being powered by the source?
Mhm.
Or with, at a minimum, source being omniscient, not already knowing that the kid would come in and say, give me all my stuff, I don't want to live here anymore. How could the omniscient one not know that already?
Mhm.
I think the all-knowing is the all-knowing of truth.
And so what I'm proposing is that the tiny mad idea was sanctioned by Dad.
Right,
Now,
that's what you're proposing.
yes, ma'am. And I talked about it in Earth School, and I mention it here because it's a key point to my proposal that this is a place for education, for learning, for making good choices. And you have to make good choices of your own volition, or else I'm oppressing you. But my kids have a vivid imagination. I'll let them find out for themselves what works and what doesn't work. But then someone would say, well, what if they get hurt? Yeah, I can't let them get hurt. Okay, I mean, what kind of loving source is that?
But none of this is true. So the premise doesn't hold up to me. None of this is true. We can't get hurt. It's not, we're dreaming it. It's just in our own consciousness.
That's my point. It was scripted so that nobody would get hurt. And so I went from saying, caught up in this terrible dream, to saying, thank goodness it's only a dream. So the only thing here of significance are lessons. So now that I know I'm in a classroom and that it's not about whether or not I'll get hurt at all, what are these lessons that you think are so important?
They're lessons to wake up. That to me is the only lesson here. Wake up to our truth.
Okay. And so when Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz woke up,
Yeah,
it was all a dream, right?
right,
Yeah.
It was nothing, right?
right.
Except what?
They
A
learned there's no
lesson?
place like home
A
when they
lesson.
woke up.
A lesson. So even the nothingness of a dream can be used to teach mighty lessons
Mhm.
in a safe environment.
Mhm.
Dorothy was safe at home the whole time, and so are we.
But it doesn't feel like a safe environment because we believe in the dream and we don't
Yes.
believe it's a dream.
Yes. And yet, when you do believe it's a dream, all of a sudden it becomes a much safer environment because I don't give it the same consequence that I used to. So,
So the Buddha had it right from the very beginning. That was what he said when they asked him what came to him, right? His realization. They asked if he was a king. No. Are you this? Are you that? No. What are you? I'm awake. Awake to truth.
yeah.
And that's our journey.
And the reason I'm sticking to this point is because I have a lot more peace knowing that I'm a lucid dreamer and that I'm not really here, but this is a projection where I can gain wisdom commensurate with my power. The power of God is omnipotent. So you got to be kind of, in other words, it'll get you what you want, is what you don't want as easily as it will what you do want. The power doesn't judge. The power holder then has to be the judge. When you're as powerful as we are, you got to kind of know how to use it and in what direction and for what. And kids may be out there all willy-nilly. But as you grow and mature and gain wisdom, you learn to use the power in a way that truly benefits, as opposed to just out there like a little kid acting all crazy. Is that a good analogy for me to use?
Sure.
All right. Comment.
That's to me what when I'm with my ego, I'm just having a childish temper tantrum,
Yeah.
wanting my way.
Yeah. And I don't care what you say, Jesus of Nazareth. My ego won't listen to reason. Why? Again? Why won't it?
Because it doesn't want to.
Because it is the tiny mad idea. It's the one that goes against the truth. No matter how you try and show it the truth, it's simply not capable of that sort of understanding. It is literally a tiny, what kind of idea?
Mad.
Insane. It makes no sense. Don't try and make sense out of it because it was not born of sense. It was born of nonsense. The ego is the person, is the epitome of the tiny mad idea. It's an intelligence that we made to counter the intelligence of truth. And I can talk till I'm blue in the face. My ego will not understand. So what are our options?
To turn to something other than the ego.
And don't let the ego be your manager.
The ego can,
Go ahead, Ron.
the ego, we can get hurt by the ego, but even if we make so-called mistakes from our higher power, we're not going to be hurt from it. We can only learn. We can't be hurt. We will learn eventually. No matter what the outcome is, it's an opportunity to learn without risk, if you will.
Where else could you do that except in a dream? Learn without risk. If I can't die, what is death to me? What is there to fear? Lesson 48. Tuesday night close. There is nothing to fear because the whole thing is a simulation. So the positive thing are the lessons here. It's replete with lessons. But there's nothing to fear. You with me or no?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Counter discussions before we move on?
As long as we know that our bodies are not real, there is nothing to fear.
Yeah. So if I'm a body, I got a lot to fear. Thank goodness it's not real. Thank goodness the whole thing isn't. So if it's not real, and if cause and effect is the most fundamental, one of the most fundamental principles we have, why the hell are we here? How did we get caught up in this crazy dream? What was the cause of this dream? Well, what's the cause of everything? Do you
To think that we can do something better, to think that we know better than our higher power, that we can do it better, we know better.
Yes. Go ahead, bro. Any more?
That's it for the moment.
So if God is the cause, the true cause of everything true, what's the true cause of the dream?
God.
The ego.
I would say God. Okay, that's why the father didn't try to stop the prodigal. It was dad's idea in the first place. It was a training for the kid. There is no faraway land. I could have told you that, but we don't operate on talk. We operate on experience. All right, I'm going too much. We only did one paragraph, right? But Charles, I like Charles Anderson. I'm with him so far. Number 2 reader, is that Joni?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but what? We couldn't. Notice that this is past tense. The 12-step program is the admission that you have evolved and are in heaven. Even the 12th step says, having had a spiritual awakening, we continue to do it. But our problem has been solved by our continual contact. There is no necessity to indicate another solution. Our certainty that the problem cannot be solved is the continuing admission of this contact with God. Today, I will judge nothing that occurs.
Comments?
Okay,
Anybody?
I'm in heaven dreaming of all this stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I went to school. I went to a virtual school. You with me or no?
Yeah. Mhm.
That sounds like something a interested father might do for his kids. Now, remember this, okay? Things, have you noticed, don't reproduce by copies. Okay, if I have an oak tree and I'd like to have more oak trees, why don't I just make a copy? Is that how things reproduce? They copy?
No.
What do oak trees do to reproduce?
They grow acorns.
And an
Seeds.
acorn is like this big,
Right.
and a whole damn oak tree is in it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the advantage of reproducing by acorn?
Well, it's a fresh start for the seed. You learn a lot about the tree as it grows.
And it can be its own unique self.
Yes.
It has the capacity for everything. It is a complete oak tree, but it requires some nurturing, some watering, some making it more sophisticated, seasoned, according
sunlight.
to its own way. Comment?
Sunlight also.
Yes. So do you see how it is an oak tree, but every oak tree has its own independent way of expressing. Some oak trees may grow to maturity in X years and some in Y years. It's not just like I said, okay, make a copy of this oak tree and make me 100 copies. That's not how it goes, is it? Do you see how you're able to receive free will by virtue of not merely just being a copy of something? There's no creativity in copies, but boy, it can be all it can be if you've got all of these individual acorns and they're able to grow and expand at their own pace. That's just, you know how Jim is. I accept all criticism from anybody that wants. All right. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. Isn't that from A Course in Miracles?
Yes.
I don't remember that number, but lesson 268 says, let all things be exactly as they are. Get out of the way, right? Our next reader I have is Ron.
Yes.
And we'll make
So the
that the last one today.
So the last sentence in the above paragraph says, today I will judge nothing that occurs. No, then it says, but we couldn't. Now with all the earnestness at our command, all of it, with everything that we can tell you as a mind who came to know this, that we can possibly give you, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough, from the very start. Look at all of this conceptual world as not being able to be understood. Say immediately, everything here is only totally chaotic. Be fearless and thorough from the very start. Why is this necessary? Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. That is a direct statement from A Course in Miracles. We think you're getting a result from your own retention of resentment, but the result is actually nil. You are getting no result. You are getting no result at all, except the continuing fear within your own mind. The result was nil until you're not going to like this sentence, until we let go absolutely. Is that all right?
Well,
Can we let go absolutely?
if you did, would that be an example of non-dualism? If you let go absolutely, is that an example of non-dualism, or is that dualism? Oh, okay.
If we let go absolutely, we become conscious of God. And that's our guiding source, our light.
Yeah, but what if you let go 93.5%? That's pretty good.
That doesn't get it.
It will get maybe 90% worth.
No, it has to be 100%.
Okay. Ultimately, though, it's got to be all of it.
Yes.
What would you say about a truth that's 92% true?
It's just not true.
It's not absolutely true.
There's that word, absolutely. Do you see what the standard is? How can the perfect be 93% perfect? But
It can't.
But in the ego world, it's been about compromise. Oh, well, 90% will do. Okay, nobody's perfect. And so we are not, right?
Hmm.
And yet, if we came from perfection, how could the perfection have offspring that are imperfect? We call it the fall from heaven, right? But how do you go against the absoluteness of that source? That's absolutely one thing.
We haven't. We're just not aware of it.
That's okay. We're all together, right? That's why we're a seasoned group of course students. Man, is 2 paragraphs enough?
It'll have to be.
Okay, I mean, I could leave off the videos and preliminary. Maybe next week, let's just get right into it and see if we like that.
Okay.
And I'll leave off the preliminary stuff. Okay.
Okay.
We got what, 44 pages or so to go? Yeah, I say we just get into it next week, okay?
Okay.
Still enjoying the study? We okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my friends. Well, I will let's see now. We made it to the first paragraph on page 20, didn't we?
Yes.
All right, so let me write that down.
Okay.
Paragraph 1 is where we'll start. Thank you for being here, and as usual, thank you for your participation tonight. And any closing remarks before we go? All right. Well, I
I
wish
don't-
you-
I really
Yeah, my
like this.
closing remark is I don't have the same beginning premise as you do. I think God knows only perfection and knows nothing about our dream.
Take a look.
Nothing about the illusion.
I'll try and find the language here, but early on in the text, there's a statement to the effect that God doesn't, I'm paraphrasing, God doesn't know the specifics, but he does know that his children aren't totally happy. Okay.
Yeah, I guess the argument for that would also be in your favor. I'll support you that that's why the Holy Spirit was created.
Yeah.
But
So,
I'm still not there.
Sure.
I am not there.
If you want to
I think the all-knowing of God is the all-knowing of truth and truth alone. And so
you're saying God doesn't know we're here?
that's my belief.
I agree. We're in total agreement.
Oh,
Okay. God knows we're not here.
right.
The question is, does God not know we're here? The beauty of the whole thing is that God knows we're not here.
Correct. I'm with you with that.
We usually end up on some level of accord, but I'm happy to discuss it with you more and indeed with the rest of you. But for tonight, let's say good night. Have a good and prosperous week. And I will see you guys next time, okay?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you, Jim.
Namaste.
Have a blessed week, everybody.
Namaste,
too.
my friends.
Namaste.
Namaste.